Hi, everybody. Welcome to the welcome to the worldview. I'm Chris Greco, your host for the next 30 minutes. We'll be talking about different parts of the world, why they impact the United States, why you shouldn't think of them as something that's happening over there. We don't worry about that type thing. What is it that links us at the United States with something as far away as China, right? And how does that all work? So today we're going to talk about is 6 degrees of China. See it in little print there, China. Uh, so what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about this area, and so basically we're going to start out with a very statistical concept called degrees of freedom. And degrees of freedom are areas where and I'm going to tell you right now, if you've ever had statistics, you probably want to forget about this. And it was not covered correctly by the professor, teacher, or whatever else you had at that point in time. Because to tell the truth, the professor or teacher really don't want to cover that. It's kind of like it's part of a calculation. Let's move on. They'll just mention a couple of things about anti-biasing or whatever they talk about, and boom, that's it. But degrees of freedom is really an interesting concept because basically, what degrees of freedom means is that you're allowed a certain amount of leeway in order to get to an answer. So basically, let's say you have 1 degree of freedom. So if you have 1 degree of freedom, then let's say the answer is 7. You have 1 degree of freedom to get to that 7, to get to that number. So if you have, let's say, a number 6, you want to get to number 7. Your degree of freedom is not all that much. You can basically be 1, right? So that's boom, that's it. So there's a lot of things that you can happen to use. Let's say if you have 2 degrees of freedom, then you have two numbers that you can use to get to that 7. You have three numbers. You have four numbers like that. So basically, degrees of freedom means you can use whatever numbers you want as long as the answer turns out to be X, which is the answer. So, for example, let's say you have a mean of 30. Right? If you have 6 degrees of freedom, that means you're allowed 6 numbers that, when used with other values, ends up with a mean of 30. You have a degree of freedom to be able to make that work. This allows for a certain amount of buffering in the overall bias. So it's an anti-biasing type thing, because basically what happens is you try not to bias those numbers to get to those areas. So why is this being used in worldview, right? So we're going to talk about that. But before we talk about that, let's talk about 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever it is. So basically it goes something like this. You can use any combination of things in order to get to Kevin Bacon, and you try to figure out, so as long as the last step is Kevin Bacon, you basically win. So let's say I would say John Lithgow, right? And you sit there and say, Footloose, because he started with Kevin Bacon. Boom. All right. So that's one step, 1 degree of freedom, basically, boom, you got to Kevin Bacon. So it's 1 degree, right? Seems easy until someone says something to take a few steps, right? I mean, whatever. Maybe, let's say Tom Cruise. Let's say, just name a movie, something that had to do with that. I mean, Sean Penn. You could do, but that's Mystic River. So you can do a lot of different things to be able to get to that answer. But basically, that's what degrees of freedom is. So in logic, it's called a hypothetical syllogism, right? If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. It's that type of thing. So it's that's the type of thing that you're trying to go to. You're trying to get C, which is basically Kevin Bacon, but you can get there through A and B. So that's a very short description of what degrees of freedom is. But I'm going to tell you right now that many of you are sitting back going, gosh, I wish my statistics professor would have said it that way. I got it. I understand it now. For those of you that have been around for 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever it is. And Kevin Bacon, if you're watching this show, congratulations. Please send me an email. I'll give you an email address. You can send it to me. You'll be the first celebrity that's ever contacted the Worldview. So I really do appreciate it. But anyways, or somebody can sit back and go, Kevin, guess what? They're talking about you on this show. It has, it's on Roku TV, Pod TV, and also on a YouTube channel. So, I mean, you're just getting all kind of good stuff out here, Kevin. Not that you need it at all, but that's the way it goes. So anyways, Kevin Bacon. So anyways, so what the HE double hockey stick trust you is okay. So the game here is to mention a country that we are going to talk about. So whatever country we're going to talk about in the worldview, your job is to figure out how that country relates to China with the least amount of moves, right? So you try to figure out, okay, how does this thing relate to China? How can I make it work? That's our little game. That's our little worldview geography game that we're going to play. Is 6 degrees to China, right? So the idea is that China is becoming so pervasive, such a massive world power, so to speak, out there, that they're interjecting themselves in all kinds of countries. No matter, I mean, and I'm telling you right now, folks, you can just about mention any of the 193 countries in this world, and somewhere along the line, China's got their little feet in there, and they're kind of making their way in through infrastructure and whatever else. So, I mean, if we're talking about Russia, well, that's easy. Psh, there we go. That's China. China's involved with Russia. We know that because Russia is part of what they call the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, which China is not only both a member, but they're also the head honcho, although they don't like to call themselves that. They have rotating stuff through SCO, and the UN even states that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is so good and so great and whatever else. I think, the old axis of evil thing coming in. But you'll find countries in this SCO. If you take a look at I think I have a show about a month ago where I talked about the SEO and the different countries in there. And you're sitting there saying, whoa, 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 Armenia and Azerbaijan are in there? They don't even like each other. They're going massively against each other. Yeah, but, there it is. They're in the SEO. Also, if I were to say Armenia, there you go. What's that? Well, there's Russia and there's China. Boom, got two. Doom. Or SEO, boom, got one. So it's, I mean, there's how we're going to play this game. So no matter what country we talk about, no matter which one we address in the show, I want you to go back and take a look at that, and I'll kind of give you the answer here. But basically, we're going to talk about those things. Okay, so now we're going to talk about is Bangladesh. So Bangladesh. So let's talk about Bangladesh for a second here. So I think that's very, very important. So we're going to talk. We're going to just actually we're going to open up. We're going to open up the old Google Pro Maps, Google Earth. See the Earth. So that's gonna come flying up here, and we're going to. Whoop, we're going to do is we're going to make this work. So now let's take a look and let's see where Bangladesh is, right? Let's flip this thing around. Where is Bangladesh? Where is? Hello, Bangladesh. Hello, and there it is. So there's Bangladesh right here. So what's that near? Well, it's near India. And what else is it near? Well, let's see, it's near Myanmar, which originally, it's the old, remember, what was it? What was the guy that did Purple Rain? What was his name? Dadgum. Anyways, Prince. So the band that used to be called Prince or whatever it was. So Myanmar used to be called Burma way back when. So that's it with that. Then you have Laos, and oh my gosh, and then you have China. Oh my gosh, there's Bangladesh. There is Nepal. Nepal, Mount Everest, all that. That's Nepal, and then Bhutan, and then we have blank. We have China. So this is Bangladesh. So why is Bangladesh so important? Why are we talking about this today? Well, everyone sits back and goes, well, that's nice, Chris, but I have nothing to do with Bangladesh. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you need to check. You need to check the tag on your shirt, your pants, your shorts, your socks, whatever it is. It may have. In fact, I'm probably willing to bet it has made in Bangladesh. This is where a lot of garments from go to Europe and go to the United States is from Bangladesh. So what happened in Bangladesh? Why are you talking about this, Chris? Well, I'm talking about it because why? Because recently a building collapsed in Bangladesh. It killed approximately 1,100 people. In the film that I saw from, I can't remember if it was Al Jazeera or whoever had the film, from the news article, you could see garments everywhere. I mean, dresses and just fabric and whatever else all over the place. Why? Because that's where they make the garments that you wear. You know, it's interesting, and I'm going to be just, I'm going to get on the soapbox for just a second. So if you want to just fast forward this, that's fine with me. But basically, it goes something like this: people are so incensed about climate change and about global warming and about, oh my gosh, you know, we got to stop manufacturing here. Well, guess what? Bangladesh is not stopping manufacturing. Bangladesh, that building collapsed after they knew it was unsafe. They knew it was unsafe. There were too many people in that building and it was not structurally sound. And basically it collapsed. And because it collapsed, all of a sudden the garment industry felt it throughout the world. I mean, at least in Europe and the United States, because all of a sudden now you talk about supply chain issues. That's a supply chain issue, right? So the building should not have had that many people in there, trying to do things. And why are they doing it? Because of money. They're trying to get money into that. The people that are doing that probably not in Bangladesh. So that's what's happening. And we talk about, again, we talk about all this climate change, we talk about global warming, we talk about all this stuff, but yet there's people that are basically doing slave labor over in Bangladesh doing these garments, and 1,100 people died, while they were trying to make the garments that you and I wear. So it's kind of a sad statement of what we're talking about here. So that's what we're talking about. So what about Bangladesh? What happened there? So in 2018, Bangladesh ambassador met with China. 2018, that was what, 5 years ago? They talked about the SCO. They talked about, interested in the organization. This is called an introduction to both the country and the SCO organization. They're going to China to ask about things, to ask about economic cooperation, those types of areas, right? In essence, the Bangladesh are interested in the security that the SCO can bring, as well as both economic and military and whatever else you want to talk about it. But according to UN source, the SCO is not a military organization. Interesting, right? However, China's participated in military exercises with the SCO countries, calling them anti-terrorist exercises because that's one of their founding principles, is to stop terrorism. China. This is China and Russia, Azerbaijan, India, Pakistan, all that. They want to stop terrorism. They want to fight terrorism wherever it is. I thought that's a very interesting, ironic statement. So, what's the result? What's the result of what's happening that affects us? Well, garments are no longer being manufactured in that building in Bangladesh. Those were major garment manufacturers. That means Europe and the US will not be getting the supply that they need. They're basically going to have a supply chain problem right at the area of origination. In essence, we're wearing garments produced by labor that is neither in a safe environment nor protected like we love to be protected here in the US for all our labor aspects and everything else. And I get it, I understand it, but dadgum, it's okay for us to be protected, but by gosh, we're gonna go ahead and wear these garments that are made in other areas that are not well protected, like Bangladesh. You know, the Bangladesh country is producing clothing that we cannot or will not produce here. A company in Maryland, it was in Baltimore. I won't mention the company's name because they'll probably get sued. But basically, they were originally a U.S. manufacturer. They put all their stuff outsourced it to places unknown, and basically, and they are still making money here in the United States based on garments produced in other areas, including South America and Central America and all those areas. And let me tell you something, they're making money hand over fist because they don't have to worry about all the protections and the benefits and everything else that we take for granted here in the United States. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about when we talk about those areas. So I think when we talk about, so what is the degrees here? So the degrees are, when we talk about it, we talk about the Bangladesh, right? They met with China. Here we go. Now, just the fact they met with China, bang, they're going to do that. So I don't see where they are a member of the SCO yet, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But I can almost guarantee you that within a year, the Bangladeshi are going to start to court the Chinese to get into that SCO. Another area that is having some issues right now is Chile and Peru. And so I wanted to just cover that real quick before I let you go today. Chile and Peru. So let's take a look at Chile and Peru here. So here is Bolivia. We talked about that last week. Chile, believe it or not, has a long, I mean, it's got a very, very long area here where you have some issues. Chile goes all the way down here. Chile, if you remember, in 1980, and sorry, not 1980, in 1975, no, 1973, September 1973, had a massive coup, and Salvador Allende was thrown out of office, and a guy by the name of Augusto Pinochet came in and took that country, basically took it. And so this is, I mean, it's really a sad situation, but that's basically what happened. And uh, and they just recently got a democratic government. So when we have, we talk about these areas, and then we have Paraguay and Uruguay here, and then you have Argentina here in this area. But if we continue to look at this, we'll see that if you move forward, if you move north, you'll see right here in Peru. And if you remember a few weeks back, I was talking about Peru. They were having all kind of issues to the point where they're having so many issues that Machu Picchu was shut down. U.S. U.S. immigrants, U.S. Tourists were stuck in Peru. They were having a heck of a time trying to get out of there. Well, they are going to the border here between Peru and Chile, and they're trying to get through because they want to go to Chile. They want to get out of Peru. That's how bad it is in Peru right now. So, I mean, it's really an issue because the first vice president is now the president, and she's having a lot of issues um, trying to put uh, peace back into that country. So that's another area that is really, really, really having a big problem is Peru and Chile, and this border area here, right along this area, is where they're having problems. Okay, finally, so what does this have to do? What does this have to do with? Let's see, Peru and Chile. Let's just see if I can put this into practice here. Let's see if I can say anything. Um, let's see if I can. I'm just gonna make a guess here. So we're gonna talk about. Let's see, Peru and China. Just gonna see if we put them together. Peru, China-Peru's relations are between the Republic of Peru. Peru is the first Latin American country that China established formal ties with, which was done in the Ying Dynasty, whatever it is, August 1875. Are members of the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation and the United Nations. So here we go. Peru's Castillo, this was 2021, strengthened ties with China. Interesting, right? Peru's new leftist president prioritizes China ties. So this is, I mean, so this Castillo is now out. He got arrested and all that stuff. So I mean, a lot of this stuff is happening. So Peru does have some type of relationship with China. What about Chile? Chile and China. Let's see if they have any relations. China after Chinese Civil War, bilateral trade between two nations began as early as, this is Wikipedia, so I want to go someplace else. Invites Chile, here we go. Invites Chile Bork to China in 2023. There we go. There we have it. So I mean, this is like everything relates to China. Everything is relating to China. This is amazing. I mean, so all of a sudden, Gabriel Boric is going to go to China. So just these two countries, and you're just messing around with this stuff, is having some issues. All right, the final area that I want to hit today is grain. So we're going to go right back to Europe, and we're going to go to some countries here. And the countries we're going to go to are two countries within they're relatively close to Ukraine. One of them is Hungary, and the other one through Romania is Bulgaria. And both these countries are having some issues, and you know um, it's because of grain from Ukraine, right? Um, Basically, I'm sorry. It's not Bulgaria. I apologize. It's Poland and Hungary. So, and here's why. Poland here borders Ukraine. Hungary here borders Ukraine. The problem is that they both produce grain. Poland has their own grain. Hungary has their own grain. By bringing in Ukraine grain, basically it's lowering the price of the grain in Poland and Hungary. And what's happening is that the Polish and the Hungarian farmers that are farming grain are they're not making money. So they're banning exports from Ukraine. Now Ukraine is not happy about this. Because it's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, we're getting bombed every day here. We're just trying to make some money so we can, do whatever, get weapons or, try to build ourselves back up. And Hungary and Poland are basically saying, no, we're not going to do that. Now, remember, they're both, Poland and Hungary, both are members of NATO. They're both members of NATO. Now, Slovakia hasn't done anything yet, and neither is Romania. But basically, what's happening is that they're just being caught here in a situation where they're trying to make money off their grain. They can't because Ukraine is basically bringing in their grain. And Ukraine has got a problem because the Crimea, which is right here, in the Black Sea, they're having an issue with trying to get their grain out of the ports, out of the Crimean ports, Odessa and the rest of those areas, because the Russians are blocking those areas. So that's what's happening there. So that's just a little bit of what's happening in the world from this standpoint. Now, the last thing I wanted to cover was Iran. And uh, Iran is interesting because basically they they just they just want to cause issues. I mean, they really do. They want to bring themselves out because they want to be sovereign nation and all this. And what's happening is that they just had an issue with the Gulf of Oman with a tanker, and the tanker there was a oil tanker, and Iran said that that they had an issue because the it was in the Gulf of Oman. Iran seized a U.S. bound tanker that was full of oil. They said that um, the tanker had the tanker had actually hit the the tanker had hit a ship, Iran Navy ship, and had caused injuries. So that's, the tanker collided with an unidentified Iran vessel. So that was whatever it was, a couple of days ago. So they had a problem, right? So they stopped it and they started to seize it and all the things. So finally, um, the interestingly enough, the um, uh, the tanker the tanker was a Turkish managed Chinese owned tanker called the Advantage Suite. Um, so it is interesting how it's all, we can, I mean, this is, again, we go back to the 6 degrees until China. But there's a lot of things happening in all these different areas of the world. And it's something that you can go back to China, you go back to China, go back to China. I mean, so every time I'm going to do this show, I'm going to show how this links to China. Now, what happened? What happened was Iran didn't seize the tanker, and the U.S. was able to take the oil from the tanker off and be able to continue on. I guess they took the tanker, and because it rammed into a ship, whatever. So this is the situation that's happening right now in the world. It's kind of weird, really, when you think about it, but it's something that we have to take into consideration. There's a lot of things happening in different parts of the world, but they all seem to be linked, right? They all seem to be linked. No matter where I went in the world today, I went to Asia, I went to Europe, I went to South America, these things are linked. They're linked to us, they're linked to China, they're linked to different areas. So I would highly, highly recommend that you start looking at this stuff from the standpoint of how this stuff relates to China. And on that note, I'm going to say that's it for the worldview. This is Chris Greco signing off and just letting you know that no matter what you do, always try to have a worldview.